Hello guys, welcome back to Flashback Flicks. Get ready for a quick dive into today's movie recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the bustling halls of the New York Adoption Center, a puppy brimming with intelligence akin to Einstein's found himself longing for a home. Despite his efforts, he faced rejection after rejection. Determined, he turned his focus to the pursuit of knowledge, eventually graduating from Harvard. Along the way, he became Mr. Peabody, a brilliant inventor. One day, he chose to adopt a human boy named Sherman, who became his trusted companion. Their greatest creation together was a time machine. Eager to explore history, they embarked on a journey to the Palace of Versailles just as the French Revolution loomed on the horizon. Inside the grandeur of Marie Antoinette's foyer, they offered a slice of cake to the Queen, unknowingly sparking unrest among the hungry masses outside. As rebellion erupted, Peabody realized they needed to flee, but Sherman disappeared, leaving Peabody frantic. Racing through the palace, he found Sherman in the kitchen, but there was no time to escape. The enraged mob stormed the palace, arresting everyone in sight, including Peabody. With the guillotine looming, Peabody managed to free himself, replacing Sherman with a melon on the chopping block. Together, they fled through the sewers, only to be cornered by Robespierre's men. Despite Peabody's efforts, Sherman was captured, yet their bond remained unbroken, and Peabody vowed to rescue his friend no matter the cost. In a bid to defend himself, Peabody tossed a melon at one of the revolutionaries, knocking his sword away. This forced the men into a fencing match with one of his own soldiers. Despite defeating Robespierre, Peabody found himself outnumbered. Desperate to escape, he hurled his sword at wooden planks holding back sewage water, riding a makeshift surfboard through the rushing waters. Sparks ignited methane gas, launching them into the sky. After a safe landing, they made their way back to the time machine and returned to the present, arriving at Sherman's first day of school. Peabody gave him a dog whistle for help. As they approached the school, Peabody assured Sherman he was just a whistle away. In history class, Penny, a girl eager to impress, answered all questions about George Washington. Sherman, having met Washington, corrected her, sparking her anger. Later in the cafeteria, Sherman tried to make friends until Penny appeared, hurling insults. She snatched the whistle and taunted Sherman, calling him a dog. Despite his sadness, Sherman retrieved his snack, only for Penny to snatch the whistle again and mock him further, demanding he admit he's just a dog. As a result of the fight, Mr. Peabody got called to the school, where he discovered that Sherman had bitten Penny's arm. To resolve the situation, a guardianship council official named Mrs. Grunion was called in. However, Mrs. Grunion only focused on Sherman's bite, accusing Peabody of treating the boy like a dog. She warned him that if she found anything wrong during her visit the next night, he could lose custody of Sherman. The following day, Peabody invited Penny's family over for dinner. While the children tried to make amends, Peabody tried to please Penny's family, but despite his efforts, they seemed unimpressed. Despite Sherman's insistence, he decided to tell the truth about his knowledge of George Washington and showed Penny the time-traveling machine. Despite her lack of understanding, Peabody managed to win over the Petersons with a chiropractic session and prepared a drink to celebrate. When they decided to have a drink, Sherman interrupted and requested a private conversation. Spotting his son, Peabody discussed his progress with the Petersons and inquired about Penny's whereabouts, only to learn she's stuck in ancient Egypt. To save time, the dog opted to hypnotize the couple, and together they embarked on a journey to Egypt to rescue Penny. Upon arrival, they discovered Penny living as an Egyptian princess and attempted to retrieve her. However, Tutankhamun intervened, threatening to skin them alive as a wedding gift. Peabody intervened, questioning Penny about Tutankhamun's premature death. Unfazed, Penny insisted on marriage. The Egyptian prime minister then elucidated the marriage customs, revealing that upon the pharaoh's death, his wife must join him in mummification. As Tutankhamun had passed away at 17, Penny finally grasped why Peabody warned against the wedding and attempted to withdraw. However, the Prime Minister insisted there was no time to spare and escorted her to the palace while Peabody and Sherman were locked in a tomb. Deciphering the hieroglyphics, Peabody navigated the first trap effortlessly, but Sherman, unable to read, took a wrong turn, triggering the tomb's traps and causing chaos. Racing through the labyrinth, they reached boats, and Peabody directed Sherman to the correct one for their escape. However, Sherman boarded the wrong boat, and Peabody leaped in to rescue him. Together, they rode down a ramp, emerging from the Sphinx's back. Despite reaching safety, they still had to rescue Penny, who was amidst her wedding ceremony. To halt the proceedings, they disguised themselves as Anubis, the god of death, threatening to unleash plagues if the union proceeded. As fear gripped the crowd, Sherman accidentally ignited a fire in the statue's mouth, adding to the chaos. As the flames engulfed Anubis's jaw, the deception was exposed. Frantically, they fled with Penny while Egyptian soldiers pursued them. Near the city walls, they utilized a counterweight system to ascend to the head of the statue of Horus, where the time machine was concealed, escaping successfully. Peabody initiated the journey back to the present day. However, the machine began to lose power, necessitating a halt during the Italian Renaissance. Seeking assistance, Peabody opted to visit Leonardo da Vinci's residence, where the artist was painting the Mona Lisa. After aiding da Vinci in completing his masterpiece, Peabody introduced him to the time machine and collaborated on developing a mechanism to convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. While Sherman assisted Peabody and da Vinci, Penny invited him for a stroll, leading them to explore Leonardo's house. In the attic, they discovered various contraptions, including the renowned prototype of the flying machine. Intrigued by the contraption, Penny climbed aboard what would one day become an airplane, inquiring Sherman about takeoff procedures. Oblivious to her intentions, Sherman explained the mechanics, and Penny activated the lever, propelling them into the air, soaring over Florence. Penny assumed control of the glider until she relinquished it to Sherman. Initially hesitant, Sherman eventually took the reins, steering the wooden plane through the city's landmarks. Meanwhile, Peabody and da Vinci completed their invention. Suddenly, Leonardo spotted his flying machine overhead and realized Sherman was at the helm. Alarmed, Peabody rushed to them, urging Sherman to land. However, Sherman's landing attempt went awry, leading to a crash into a log, destroying the world's first airplane prototype. Despite the mishap, both were unharmed, and da Vinci was thrilled with the success of his invention. However, Peabody was deeply upset and urged them to depart promptly, eager to have a conversation back home. At da Vinci's urging, they activated the mechanism, regaining the energy needed to return. During their journey through time, Penny noticed Sherman's melancholy and encouraged him to confide in Peabody. When Sherman attempted to apologize, Peabody accused him of vandalism. Outraged, Penny criticizes Peabody for not being a good father, citing Miss Grunyon's desire to separate them. Shocked, Sherman questions Peabody, who reassures him that he won't allow anyone to tear them apart. However, the discussion must be postponed as they suddenly encounter a black hole and begin to be pulled into its event horizon. To escape, Peabody reverses the engines, but the energy proves insufficient, prompting him to divert power to the thrusters. As Peabody does his best to save them, Sherman interrupts, asking why he hasn't mentioned anything about Miss Grunion. Peabody responds, suggesting they talk about it later and telling Sherman to sit down. Angry, Sherman insists he's not a dog and can't be spoken to like a child. Ending the argument, Peabody successfully redirects the energy to the thrusters, escaping the black hole, but they end up further in the past, right in the middle of the Trojan War. To make matters worse, Boy falls out of the machine during the journey, leaving Peabody and Penny to search for him amidst the conflict. Inside the Trojan horse, Agamemnon rallies the Greek heroes, including Sherman, as warriors prepare for battle. Odysseus sneaks the wooden horse inside, unaware that Peabody and Penny are hiding within. Eager to retrieve his son, Peabody requests to bring Sherman along, but Agamemnon denies him, citing an oath that binds Sherman to battle. Concerned for his son, Peabody warns Agamemnon about the horrors of the impending war, but Agamemnon remains steadfast. As the Trojans haul the horse toward the city walls, Peabody's desperation grows. Despite his father's protests, Sherman insists on joining the fray, leaping from the horse alongside the Greek warriors. However, when faced with the first Trojan, fear overtakes Sherman, and he attempts to flee. Cornered by the enemy, Sherman blows whistle, calling for Peabody's aid, who rescues him just in time. Together, they navigate the battlefield as Peabody confronts soldiers. Finally reaching the horse's base, they begin to climb the rope with Penny's assistance. As the city gate collapses onto the wooden structure, both boys are knocked down, sending the horse careening through the streets with Penny trapped inside. Determined to save her, the boys grab a mount and race through the city streets. On the opposite side, Peabody grabs a harpoon and skillfully lassos the horse's tail, tethering it to a concrete wall. This action breaks the structure, allowing them to reach Penny. However, as they prepare to leave, Penny's dress catches on a nail, prompting Sherman to rush to her aid, inadvertently shifting the center of mass and causing the entire structure to teeter over the cliff. Acting swiftly, Peabody jumps onto a plank and hurls them off the horse to safety, but as the structure tumbles, Peabody finds himself falling onto the rocks of the sea. Overwhelmed by the loss of his father, Sherman begins to cry until he comes up with an idea to return to a moment just before their journey to Egypt. Rushing back to the machine, Sherman attempts to program the trip, only to be met with an error message warning against traveling to a time where he already exists, as it could lead to a temporal collapse if both versions were to meet. Determined to rescue Peabody, Sherman agrees to take the chance and switches to manual control, forcing the machine to make the journey regardless. After a quick trip through the wormhole, they arrive back in the living room and summon Peabody for a conversation, sharing everything they've been through to return. Upon learning about his own demise, the brilliant dog explains they couldn't go back to a time where they already existed. Sherman reassures him, believing his other self is in ancient Egypt. However, he couldn't be more mistaken. Suddenly, the other Sherman appears, seeking Mr. Peabody's assistance and amazed to encounter his own duplicate. When they make contact, the two versions of Sherman start merging, leaving Peabody frantic and insisting they must find a solution before the Petersons notice. Just then, Penny's parents arrive, and present-day Sherman tries to evade their notice. However, just as he's about to slip away, Ms. Grunion arrives for dinner as well. In a moment of desperation, Peabody attempts to hypnotize her but accidentally strikes present-day Sherman, knocking him down and revealing the existence of two versions of the boy. As the adults try to comprehend the situation, the other Peabody arrives, explaining he survived the Trojan horse incident. Overjoyed, Sherman embraces his father, eager to know how he returned, learning that Peabody fashioned a time machine from bones and stones. Determined to set things right, Peabody suggests returning to the machine, but Grunion intervenes, declaring they won't go anywhere, citing concerns about Peabody's custody of Sherman. Feeling remorseful, Penny tries to take the blame and apologize, but Grunion ignores her, seizing the boys and causing them to merge. To prevent disaster, both versions of Peabody try to pull the boys away, but this only worsens things, causing all four to merge. As a result, the future Peabody and Sherman vanish, triggering an explosion that damages space-time. Amidst the chaos, Grunion grabs Sherman and attempts to haul him away, injuring him in the process. This prompts Peabody's protective instincts to kick in, and he retaliates against her. After Grunion is bitten, she calls the police, prompting Peabody to flee with the children, leading them to the time machine. However, during their attempt to fix things, the vehicle starts shaking, and they are thrust back into the present. Upon seeing an error message, Peabody spots a wormhole in the sky and realizes that the collision between their duplicates has ruptured spacetime, preventing them from traveling to the past. Suddenly, Da Vinci tumbles through the wormhole, followed by several other historical figures. Yet, the police helicopters pose an even greater threat as they begin to pursue them in a car chase. Grunion and the Petersons pursue the time machine until the Trojan horse falls, creating a ramp that narrowly misses running over Agamemnon. As Peabody searches for a passage to the past, he nearly collides with a police helicopter, forcing him to land the machine abruptly to prevent casualties. Following the crash, Agamemnon and other historical figures rush to assist Peabody, but the police intervene, demanding Robespierre surrender his saber. When he refuses, the police use a taser gun, incapacitating him and causing all the time travelers to retreat. With no one else obstructing them, the police instruct Peabody to exit the machine, but he tries to explain his need to fix everything. Grunion dismisses Peabody's pleas, ordering animal control to remove him. In a desperate attempt to save him, Sherman tries to take responsibility, but Grunion insists it's futile, claiming they can't alter the law. In a stroke of inspiration, Penny contacts George Washington, reminding him of his authority as the first U.S. president. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Ronald Reagan grant presidential pardons to Peabody, yet their troubles are far from over. Suddenly, the rift in the sky widens, and the Sphinx crashes onto New York streets, striking Ms. Grunion. With the world's greatest minds convened, they brainstorm solutions to fix the temporal collapse but reach no resolution. Sherman ponders on how to solve the problem and proposes traveling to the future, reasoning that since they've never been there, it should remain unaffected. Once in the future, they plan to reverse the process and return to the present, stabilizing the wormhole. Peabody, Einstein, and the others agree it's a brilliant idea. With their encouragement, Peabody and Sherman enter the time machine, and Sherman takes the wheel, navigating through the city streets. As they drive, the Titanic collides with them. Undeterred, Sherman steers the machine toward the wormhole, accelerating to maximum speed. With maximum acceleration, Sherman presses the button to halt the fall, and everything gets drawn back into time. Once the Sphinx's nose detaches, Grunion threatens Peabody until Agamemnon intervenes, pulling her into spacetime to become his wife. As everyone returns to their own time, the wormhole seals shut, leaving the time machine intact in the sky, prompting cheers of success. With the world safe again, life resumes as usual, and Sherman and Penny become the closest of friends, overcoming their shared trials. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the recap, remember to like and subscribe for more videos.